All right, guys, today I'm here to talk about what I hope is a really helpful subject, what can be a little bit of a tumultuous subject. The topic is ethically sourcing crystals. Because this is fraught with lots of emotions on both sides, feel free to leave any comments below, your knowledge, your thoughts, but please, please, please be kind and courteous to me and to anybody else commenting. We'll keep this a safe and happy space. With that said, let's dive in. So, what is the general definition of an ethically sourced crystal? And then, why should you care? It's one thing to say, isn't that nice that things are ethically sourced? It's another thing to decide to spend the time, money, and effort to purchase products that are ethically sourced. And I think that that's the real crux of this. Anytime we talk about being environmentally friendly, it's really not just a mental state, it's an emotional state. It's understanding the value of that. So hopefully I can educate you on that, and this will be helpful for you, for yourself, and in explaining it to anybody else. What would make something ethically sourced? Number one would be how environmentally friendly is the process that you go through to get the crystal out of the ground. So if you've seen pictures of where they have dug up crystals and it looks like giant wastelands, piles of earth, and it's a lot like any other mining process in the sense that we have to get under the ground, pull things out of the ground, and now we've left a hole and we've maybe had to cut down trees, et cetera, et cetera. It is like anything that we get out of the ground. Now, me saying that you're having to disturb the earth to get at the crystals immediately makes some people say, no one should have crystals. There should be zero crystals. People should not be buying them. We're destroying the earth. Well, there's balance to everything. So oil, natural gas, food, paper, right? We are having to do something to the earth which could be seen as damaging it in order to take from it to consume for ourselves. So the point is, how are you doing this process? Are you leaving a giant gaping wound in the earth and then moving on? Are you caring for it? So that is the first thing. Is a mineral that you're taking from the ground, are you doing it in the way that is of the least damage to the earth itself? Okay, so that would be one. Number two would be, are you treating the people who are digging the crystal out of the ground with the appropriate respect? Are you paying them? And this, again, is across the board in many, many, many different products that we use. Were there children used for labor? Were there adults used for labor that were not appropriately paid, a living wage, et cetera, et cetera? And as this has gained more popularity, the sense of things being ethical, people being treated, the earth being treated the way they deserve, you start to see changes happening within different industries. As the consumer says, I want something that is ethically made, that is not damaging the earth, and that is paying the people what they deserve to help bring it to me, then the industry has to change in response to the consumer demand, right? So you see that happening with food a lot. You see it happening with coffee, our palm-based products, where we're saying, please don't kill the rainforest and please pay the workers. Those sorts of scenarios. In the food industry and in the crystal industry, it's the same thing. Don't destroy the earth, and you need to pay people. This is hard labor. You need to pay people appropriately. So because of that, we've started to see some shifts into things being labeled as ethically sourced. And that is the first step. A few years ago, I taught a workshop and we were using gemstone beads to make bracelets. And one of the girls who was taking the workshop said, with a little bit of a combative tone, well, where do you source your gemstones from? Are they ethically sourced? And my response with as much love as possible was, unfortunately, there are no current sources for gemstone beads where you can trace back the ethical nature of the bead sourcing. At that point, you could get large pieces like, big amethyst show pieces, like larger, more expensive crystals. There was some ethical labeling back then, but it had not made it all the way down to small little pendants like this, beads like this, and the round beads especially. So what I knew was not to source from the places that were definitely not ethical. Not to source from companies and or countries that have a bad rap for their lack of ethical sourcing and production practices. So that's all I could tell her. I avoid the ones that I know are doing a bad job, but there are not any that I have been able to find that are standing behind the ethicalness of their product in terms of the smaller pieces of gemstones that are used in jewelry. I don't think that that answer satisfied her, but it was the only answer that I had. And I always do the best that I can with what I'm given to work with. And that, I think, is what we should be asking of any business. Are they doing the best that they can to take care of their employees, to keep their business afloat, to take care of their customers, and to take care of the world on which we all exist? From that conversation, though, it planted a seed in the back of my mind. If she cares as a customer, then other people care, right? And if other people care, then at some point there's going to be a movement where people are starting to demand things that are labeled as ethically sourced. And I want to be on the front end of that. I'm going to start trying to prove myself wrong. I'm trying to prove that answer wrong by finding a company with gemstone beads that are ethically sourced. Finally, I found, really the algorithm brought to me, let's give the algorithm the credit it's due, brought to me a company, and then from there, a few other options that I have discovered in my research that are ethically sourcing beads, gemstone cabochons, which make the larger pieces, pendants, and some of my raw crystals as well. That was a huge win in and of itself, to be able to say, I'm doing the best I can. I look first for all of my ethical sourcing. If I can't find that, I see if there's another gemstone that will do the similar property that someone's requesting, and we try and do that instead. If I have to, sometimes I still go and purchase crystals from the best companies that I know of that I have no knowledge that they're not ethically treating their workers or the earth. But not everything is available under the label of ethically sourced. But the more and more I can find, the more I purchase. And does that mean that I threw away all of the other beads that I have that were from companies that I used before I found these ones that are labeled ethically sourced? No, that would be like throwing away paper because you found out that it's killing the earth, or not eating food that you found out wasn't from happy chickens or something. So I have these beads that are not identifiable as ethically sourced, and I work through them, and every time I sell through those beads, then I can buy replacement beads from the ones that are ethically sourced. Now, for me, that's more expensive to purchase ethically sourced crystals, but I feel so much better knowing that I am able to put on my website that this is an ethically sourced product, right? That I'm willing to take that pinch in my margin because I know it's the right thing to do. So recap, ethically sourced crystals mean that they have treated the earth with as much love, care, and respect as possible while getting these crystals out of the ground. Part 2 is treating the people correctly by appropriately paying them to get the crystals out of the ground. Also, though, there's more steps between the crystal coming out of the ground and getting to you in the form of jewelry, for instance. So then it's paying the people who are turning it into, say, the beads that are in these earrings, right? These rutilated quartz beads. Somebody has to make those beads. Another example would be like this turquoise, beautiful turquoise piece, which is actually a composite, has pieces of turquoise with other metals added in to create a patterning. So the person that made this piece, the person that made these beads, even the person, these are all ethically sourced, even the person that facets, right, does the cutting on a large stone like this, that creates this oval, makes all of these beads, the person who is making the stone that I then wire wrap and turn into this jewelry, right? I do the wire wrapping, but someone had to make that beautiful oval first. I do not do that. The question is, was that person being appropriately paid for their craftsmanship. And then you have employees who are running a website, and then you have people who are packing, and then it's shipped to me, right? So there's a lot of people involved in getting the raw materials to me so that I can make beautiful jewelry for you. At the point where it comes to me, are all of my other materials as high quality and ethically sourced as possible? Is my packaging as ethical as possible? Like using recycled mailers. All of my crystal property cards and all of my jewelry backers are all from recycled paper. So there's, from getting a crystal out of the ground to getting it onto your neck, there is a large span of people and processes that can be ethical or not. And so when you're paying for an end product, if you really want it to be ethical, you're paying for all of those steps along the way, right? And you can see why it's difficult to then verify something is ethically sourced. Now, I do believe that just like the FDA has organic, right? And then we have biodynamic, which is above organic. So I believe the same process will happen with ethical sourcing of crystals at some point, or should happen with ethical sourcing of crystals at some point. Much like it is starting to happen in the essential oil industry, the same thing can and should move over into the crystal arena. So at some point, it will become easier and easier for me to verify my source, at which point it will be easier for me to then help you to verify through me that the jewelry that you are getting is all ethically sourced. At this point, if you go onto my website and you look at a piece of jewelry, it will say in the details section if it is made with ethically sourced crystals. You will be able to verify that. If you have any questions, you can always ask me. But you will go on the website, you will look up, for instance, these green jasper and rutilated quartz earrings. And if it says ethically sourced crystals, both of these are ethically sourced, which is the case here. If it doesn't say anything, then that might mean that one of those beads is from my old stock. I can't yet label the whole piece ethically sourced. Like for this piece example, when this says ethically sourced, it's because every single one of these beads was also ethically sourced. Okay. Now, let me talk for a second about the backlash against crystal sellers that I find really interesting as one myself. I'm in the social media space, right? And so there are people who argue back and forth about whether or not we should be getting new crystals out of the ground at all, or whether we should just be reselling the crystals that we already have. I've already explained to you part of that, the issue with that. If you never buy anything that hasn't been taken out of the ground, there would be a lot of other areas in your life. There would be a lot of other products and services that you would not be able to use, including driving to and from work. So while that's impractical on a macro scale, where I do believe they have a point is when people have massive collections of crystals and they start hoarding them. Basically, if you're not using these crystals, if they're just there as some sort of collection or because you just think that they're pretty, there's a line you cross where you are consuming so much of a natural resource that it becomes questionable as to whether that is a proper ethical use of that resource yourself. And so that is what a lot of people, especially who lean towards minimalism, right, are saying, look, we need to use less. So if you have these giant crystal collections, you're not participating in using less. So myself, somebody who sells crystals and uses crystals for healing, I don't have a huge collection. What you see behind me is all pieces I'm going to send to people, right? This is my shop. My personal collection fits on one of my small shelves. I get to see all these beautiful crystals all day. I get that. But also, I have my tumbled stones, which are small, that I use for healing, and I have my jewelry. I don't have really any showpieces, big statues or carvings or things like that. But I just see it on Facebook where people get frustrated with others who are showing large collections. And they say, you shouldn't have that large of a collection because you're over consuming. So ethicalness from that standpoint can be seen how much should we be consuming? And when something becomes popular like crystals or essential oils or palm oil or any natural resource, and people start consuming a lot more of it, do we need to do something to make sure that it is still maintaining that ethicalness? So the popularity of crystals growing created many, many positive things, also potentially created an overconsumption, but then on the back of that created a call for the ethical sourcing, which is helping to solve a problem that was there before crystals really became popular again. So everything balances. In my personal opinion, everything balances. As we move forward, we do the best that we can, and we ask for better from ourselves and others, from suppliers, from growers, from producers, in all of the ways, from all of the industries. We ask for better as consumers, and then those changes start to happen. So this has become a much longer video than I anticipated. The key points are ethical sourcing is how you take care of the environment, but also how you treat the people all the way along the chain to you. Also, the other packaging, et cetera, that goes into it affects whether or not this is ethical from an environmental standpoint. And then you can ask yourself as a consumer, how much do I need? Am I using it, or is it just sitting around? And how important is it to me to purchase from people who are ethically sourcing things? And am I willing to spend a little bit more if necessary to do that? The one bonus thing that I was so happy to discover, it makes total sense, but I was so happy to discover when I started buying from ethically sourced places, the quality is noticeably better. So for you as a consumer, when you purchase a crystal, at least for me, because I'm quality controlling all of this, if you purchase a crystal from me that is ethically sourced, it is also going to be, gosh darn, gorgeous. It is going to be absolutely stunningly beautiful. And I could almost bet you that it would be more beautiful than the cheaper, non-ethically sourced version of that. Because if you think about the love that went into getting it out of the earth, the craftspeople that are paid a living wage, right, all the way to the love and care that I take in making a piece that is not super cheap, and then sending it to you, the entire column of that experience headed towards you is of a higher quality. So for instance, let me just take rutilated garden quartz. I guess I have a thing for rutilated quartz because all of these are examples of that. Okay, this beauty right here, right, with all of this faceting, the stone itself is so, each one of these I could just stare at for hours. It's like a little wonderland inside of this, okay? Let's take raw crystals, for example. This citrine, my first goal was to get raw citrine. My second goal was to get ethically sourced citrine. And guess what? When you get citrine that is verified from the mine, not treated, it's also way more likely to be ethically sourced because they care. This is another point. You're a lot less likely to be lied to about the quality of the gemstone, whether it's been dyed, whether it's been heated, its actual name, its healing properties, all of those things, if you're sourcing from an ethical company, because they care, right? They're not just in it for the money. They actually care about this whole macrocosm of our world. They care about you. They care about the earth. They care about their employees. So it's another great way to know that it's a trustworthy company. Look how gorgeous these are. Oh my goodness. Another thing I looked for forever before I finally found a source. So it's everything from those gemstones to the beauty with which they make each bead, the color quality, texture quality, inclusion quality, patterning, right? Everything that goes into making beads is higher quality when they care more, which they do when it's ethically sourced. So that is, some of this is my own personal opinion. You may disagree with me. You may mostly agree with me and slightly disagree on some points, and all of that is okay. This is an educational video to give you my knowledge. I have to source from people who are either straight mining them or turning them into the gemstone cabochons, beads, pendants, etc. And as somebody who is selling them and has to understand the ethics of selling to a customer. Hopefully from this, you understand more than you would have just as a consumer, because I'm sharing with you my experience and my expertise in this. If you have any questions, feel free to put them down below. I'm not claiming perfection. I'm not claiming that every single piece that you can purchase from me is currently ethically sourced, because I have a stock that I'm selling through of pieces that I couldn't verify before. If you go onto the market and you're trying to purchase wholesale or retail, it will be very difficult to find every single gemstone from an ethical source at this point. But the more that we're asking for that, the more ethical jewelry I can sell, the more I can purchase from these companies, the more that they can source, the more that they can sell, the more all of this, we work together to create a better and better product, a better and better way of treating the earth and the employees that go into making that product. So again, questions, leave them below. I am doing a series of these informational videos. I also have one on Reiki infusing. What does that mean? Why do I Reiki infuse my jewelry? So you will find that video right here. Go ahead and watch that one next. And again, on that one, if you have any questions, always let me know. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Love you very much, and I'll see you soon.